Today, we're diving into the guidebook for the Sacred Geometry Activations Oracle. And the idea here is that these cards aren't just for fortune telling. Nope, they're meant to be a key, a tool to unlock a totally different way of seeing the world, and more importantly, your role in creating it. So let's see what that's all about. Right out of the gate, the guidebook hits us with this really powerful question. I mean, think about that for a second. We all know the saying about beauty, but what if reality itself works the same way? What if it's not just this solid thing that happens to us? What if we're actually co-creating it every single moment? This is the core idea, the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with this new view of reality, then get into what sacred geometry actually is, the soul's language. After that, we'll see how it's supposed to be a bridge to our subconscious, cover the nuts and bolts of how to use the cards, check out a few sample spreads, and wrap it all up with the single most important piece of advice in the whole book. Okay, first up, this new perspective on reality. The guidebook suggests that most of us, without even realizing it, live inside this little mental box. It's a box built from our beliefs, our habits, our assumptions, and it pretty much dictates what we think is possible. This oracle, then, is presented as a way to find the door out of that box.
You know, if you look up reality in a dictionary, it'll say something like the state of things as they actually exist. Pretty straightforward, right? But this guidebook flips that on its head. It proposes something way more radical, that reality is actually a personal experience that we are actively creating. It's a huge shift, moving us from just being spectators to being the actual artists of our lives. So, if we can shape our own reality, how in the world do we do that? Well, according to the guidebook, we need to learn a new language. Or maybe remember an old one, a language that our deeper self, our soul, already speaks fluently, and that language is sacred geometry. But before we get all mystical, let's just ground ourselves for a second. The word geometry itself is pretty simple. It comes from the Greek geo for earth and metron for measurement. So literally, it just means to measure the earth. It's the science of shapes in space. But what happens when those shapes are seen as something more?
And that's where sacred geometry comes in. The idea here is that it's the literal blueprint of all creation. It's the concept that the same basic patterns, the same proportions and ratios show up absolutely everywhere, from the tiny double helix of our DNA to the swirling arms of a galaxy. It makes sense why someone like Plato would call it the language of the soul, right? Because it points to a universal order that we're all a part of.
Okay, so we have this universal language. Now what? How do we actually use it? Well, this is the whole point of the oracle cards. The idea is to use these geometric images as a kind of bridge, a shortcut, to bypass our chattering, logical, everyday mind and talk directly with the deeper part of ourselves.
This chart lays it out perfectly. On one hand, you've got your analytical mind. It's great, it's logical, it's precise, but it's also stuck inside that box of what it already knows and understands. Then you have the subconscious mind. It's intuitive, it's multidimensional, and it doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in symbols, feelings, and patterns. So to get its wisdom, you have to speak its language.
And this is what that language looks like. When you gaze at an image like this, your analytical mind might just go, okay, pretty shapes. It doesn't really know what to do with it. But the whole theory is that your subconscious mind gets it. It recognizes the pattern, it understands the vibration of it, and it allows new insights to pop up without your conscious brain getting in the way and overthinking everything.
All right, so that's the big picture theory. Now let's get down to brass tacks. You might be thinking this all sounds a little complicated, but the guidebook is really clear that using these cards is actually super simple and, you guessed it, intuitive.
Getting started is really a simple three-step process. First, you give the deck a few firm knocks to clear out any old stagnant energy. Then, while you shuffle, you just hold your question or your intention in your mind. What do you want clarity on? And finally, you draw your cards. The guidebook really stresses this part. Just trust yourself. There's no wrong way to do it. The right cards will find their way to you.
So you've pulled your cards, now what? The guidebook offers a few different layouts, or spreads, that can help you look at your questions from different angles. Let's just take a quick peek at a few common ones. This is the easiest one, your go-to. The intuitive draw is just a single card. It's perfect for something quick, like setting a theme for your day or getting a little flash of insight on one specific thing that's bugging you.
The Sacred Duality spread is really interesting. It uses two cards to help you explore the two sides of a situation. Like the passive energy versus the active energy, or what's going on inside you versus what's happening externally. It's all about bringing balance and a wider perspective.
And here's a classic that you've probably seen before in some form, the Trinity Draw. It's a 3-card spread that helps you see the story of a situation, where you've been, where you are right now, and the potential energy of where things are heading, past, present, and future.
So we've covered the philosophy behind the deck and the practical ways to use it. But all of this, every single bit of it, leads to one central, absolutely critical message that the guidebook repeats over and over again.
And this is it. This is the golden rule. The descriptions in the book for each card, they're just an invitation, a starting point to get you thinking. But the real message, the real guidance, comes from you. It's the feeling you get, the thought that pops into your head, the connection you make when you look at the image. That is the oracle speaking. Your intuition is always, always the ultimate guide.
So we end right back where we started. This whole thing, it's not really about predicting the future. It's a tool for a journey inward. It's a way to connect with the part of you that speaks in a language older than words. The guidebook just hands you a key. So the only question left is, are you ready to discover the language of your soul?